How did you guys divide the work between the two of you?
It's a great question. We were talking with someone else about this recently, and I'm curious for your thoughts on this, Bob, because this is all like in hindsight, so maybe my memory of it is different. But we had very, very blurry lines. If I had to think of a general workflow or division, I would say both of us worked on everything. Both of us did everything, but we kind of alternated roles a little bit. So our typical workflow would be one of us would come up with an idea for a chapter or early on a Reddit post. Then they would write up an outline or a really quick first draft, then flip it over to the second person who would come in and write some pretty strategic high level thoughts like, actually, it feels like, it should be more about this, or let's cut this whole section or rework it, and then flip it back. And then from there, the amount of changes that were happening decreased drastically, right? So like the first person writes a draft, the second person changes 60% of it, the third person changes 20% until it's ready to go. And then generally one of us would post it, we would get feedback, another person would go in and incorporate that feedback, and then more micro edits would happen. I think that as we wrote more and more, that process shrunk drastically to the point at the end where I think we would often write a chapter in one go, and then the other person would come in and make like 5% copy edits just because we were so aligned on things, and had gotten so much better and faster at writing. But every chapter in the book went through a intense feedback process where it was either posted on Reddit and was torn to shreds, or sent to a bunch of our friends who were in school, or sent to our newsletter and torn to shreds that way. And so I think like we very much did not want to have clear roles around like, I'm the writer, you're the editor, or I'm the marketer, you're the publisher or something. And instead, we just each did everything, but made sure to flip back and forth. There was one specific time where we had very clear roles, and I think that was when we wrote the very first draft of the book. I think you, Bob, wrote the introduction and kind of put a lot of weight behind the first draft of the book. And I remember I felt a little like I was not doing enough, but it never led to anything. And I think it all like evened out, and yeah.
Yeah, and there was a lot of ebb and flow, and we got better and better at it. I don't think either of us considers ourselves a natural writer. And so between improving at the ability to write and then finding a tone that worked for both of us, those writing cycles that Adam talked about got narrow and narrower, quicker and quicker. I think the other side of this, Adam, that is maybe the less glorious part, but a lot of what I heard you talking about was our writing process together. But then as we started turning this into a book, right, we had a MailChimp subscription list. We had built a little website. Like there was all this other surrounding aspects beyond just the writing. And I would say for us anyways, like, Adam and I have very different strengths. My tendency is to be a grinder and to like push through things. I think Adam's very good at like seeing different ideas and picking his head up and like finding other places to go. And so I think we would have a healthy tension as to like challenging each other in different ways with that. And I think Adam does a great job of being like, oh, we should do X, like let's start working on the book, or let's build the newsletter. And then I do a better job of being like, oh, a newsletter, all right, like let's get into this and do it.
That's a really good point. And two things that come to mind there is like there were clear roles around like you tended to own the newsletter, I tended to own the website, things like that. And then I think I often took us down weird paths that led to nothing. Like, oh, we should do a series of workshops, and we would get a bunch of demand for it and signups, and we'd be like, we don't want to do it though. So we would cancel it. And Bob's very good at being like, well, let's send another edition of the newsletter first, or like, let's actually do the thing. At one point we were exploring like building a really cool software tool for MBA students around like note-taking and building a portfolio. And I still think that was a great idea, but like we didn't have the time or the interest to do it, So there was like a healthy tension around that as well. And then I would say one more thing is I think I tended to play the role of more words, more ideas, and you played a good role of like editor and clearer words, clearer ideas,
Yeah, I went back